Hello folks, this is John with Ozarks Back Roads. We're here with you today. I'm in the garage and I'm going to be doing a little maintenance on the Versys, the Kawasaki Versys 1000. We're going to do a throttle body sync, kind of see where it's at from the factory setting. We're supposed to be done at the first service, and I'm about 1,000 miles, so I'm a little past that, but I'm going to try to get caught up today. See how the factory set it up, and stick around. We'll get to use a couple of cool tools and see what it's like, what's involved in syncing the throttle bodies on the Versys 1000. So I'm using the Haynes manual here to kind of walk me through this. This is the first time I've done throttle body sync on this bike. And it's telling me to remove the panels around the fuel tank and the side panels around the engine. And then we're going to have to remove the fuel tank and the air box, and then replace the hook up some hoses and then replace the air box. So there's quite a bit to it here. We'll get started here with removing these panels around this fuel tank. We've got our side panels off, panels around the tank there, and then to get the tank off, there's two bolts right on the front of the tank. There's one of them, there they are down there. We take them loose, and then back here at the back of the tank we got one bolt that the tank will pivot up on. I'll probably just take this bracket loose here where it mounts here and here to the frame. Slide the tank back a little bit to clear my handlebars. I've got risers on this. They kind of stick out over the front of the tank a little bit. So I may have to slide the tank back just a little bit and then lift it straight up. Then we'll prop it up with something and see about unhooking the hoses and the power from the fuel pump and whatnot. Alright, we've got our tank up, lifted up. I've got it propped up there with a stick, and I believe it's going to allow me to get this air box out. The next step's to remove this air box. I've got the lid off of it. They're just screws around the perimeter. So I went ahead and did that. And there was one little bracket here that kind of clipped on the lid. You just lift that up and clip it off and it stays. We've got a hose, an air suction hose, right here that has to be removed. So we'll take that off, and then there's on this side it's hard to see, but there's a plug that plugs into a sensor here in the back of the air box. We're going to unplug that. And then we've got these 4 snorkels that go down on the throttle bodies. They have to be unclamped. They're clamped to the throttle bodies. And the bolt to unclamp them, there's one on each side. Get a little light down here. And right there it is. And that bolt does the 2 on this side, and there's one just like it on the other side that will do the 2 for the other side. So when I loosen that up, those clamps, you can see one of them right here. Where am I at? One of them right here. And there's another one in the middle one. This one bolt will do the 2 for the cylinders 1 and 2 over here, and then there's one just like it that'll do the 2 on the other side. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen those up. And at that point, we got a bolt right here we're gonna have to take out, and then that air box should just lift right off of these will come right off the throttle bodies, and we'll be able to lift that air box out. So let's see how we do with that. Okay, we got the air box off. Take a look in here. It was pretty simple. Just them 2 bolts that hold these clamps. I'm gonna get a look at this. The bolts we did from the outside, one right here and one on the other side here. This is upside down right now, but one bolt does the clamp around 2 of these. So this did this half and this did this half. then the one bolt right here that we took out. It pretty much just lifted right off of there, came straight up. So that was pretty easy to get out. The manual says to plug the hoses that we unhooked, which is this air suction hose right here. So I've got a bolt in it, and then there was a crankcase vent right here hose, and I got a plug in it. And then this is the little plug we had to unplug out of the air box on the back there before it would come out. So we've got that out. Now we need to hook up our gauges to the ports on each throttle body, and we'll have a look at which one to use here. Alright, we're looking down in here from we're over on the right side of the bike right now, looking down on this number 4 throttle body. Here, there's 3 ports there, and we're using the leftmost port on each one of them. The far left port of each of the 3 on each throttle body is the one we're hooking our gauges to. So it'll be the left port there and the left port on all the way across on each one. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Hook up my gauges on there, and then we've got to set the air box back down on it. So we'll have to probably route our vacuum lines for our gauges. Probably run them in the side right here, I imagine, and then right along underneath the air box. So I'll get those hooked up, and I'll set the air box back down on it, and then we'll see what we can do. I've got all my vacuum lines off, and they all hook. They're like a rail of vacuum lines. They all hook to a T right here, and it goes to one hose right here. The book says to plug each of these off. I just unplugged this where it plugged into this T, the main source hose here, and I just plugged that off, and then I'll replace this when I unhook my gauges when I put it back together. Same effect. Well, I got the air box back in. That was pretty simple. I went ahead and put the lid on it. It doesn't have to be off. The lid can stay on it and the whole thing will come out. I just snugged up the clamp bolts on either side, clamp them down on the throttle body throats. That's pretty much all you need to do. I didn't worry about screwing that back in or anything. It's got to all come back off again anyhow. So we need to warm the bike up, and we'll check our readings, our vacuum readings on each throttle body right here. We got a cool tool to adjust this with. It's a cool tool you have to have, and it's a right angle screwdriver to get in to adjust the screws to adjust the vacuum on each throttle body. According to the manual, and I looked and found them, the ports are on the back sides of the throttle bodies in between the injectors. There's a picture of where they're at, and you have to have a right angle screwdriver to go in from the side and get on those ports to adjust the screws. So that's the right side of the bike there, and it's showing the adjustment ports for cylinders 3 and 4 right there, and then 1 and 2 are on the other side. So we'll warm the bike up and see if we can get on those ports and with this right angle screwdriver and see how it works. Alright, we've got the bike warming up now, and just kind of looking at these gauges, and what I'm seeing here is cylinders 2 and 4 are almost identical, and cylinders 1 and 3 are lower than 2 and 4. So probably what I'll do here is try to bump cylinder 1 and 3 up to match 2 and 4. I think that's our best bet. So I'll get my right angle screwdriver and see if I can get on that first port. It's kind of hidden in behind this linkage for the throttle right here. It's right in behind it there, so I really can't get the camera on it. But I'll try to get the screwdriver on it and see if I can get that first cylinder to come up a little bit. We got them all lined up as good as I can get them. Pretty hard to get on some of those with that right angle, but we're all within spec here. I would have to say that this is probably one of the hardest bikes I ever tried to get to sync throttle bodies on. I've never had this much trouble before. But we got it in the end. Persistence paid off. So now we get to turn that noisy thing off. So now basically I've got to pull that breather back off and take my gauge hoses off and put my little hose set that I took off of it. This guy right here, I'll put him back on and plumb everything back up. And that's basically what we have gotten into on this. The ports were very difficult to get to even with the right angle screwdriver. So I'm not real happy about this. There goes somebody riding a bike right now. I think Kawasaki could have put a little forethought into this and a little effort and made this a whole lot easier to service. That was just pretty rough. I spent probably close to an hour just trying to adjust those, get my screwdriver on the ports. You can't see them, you can't feel them. They're just in a really bad spot. But anyhow, we did it. So we'll put this back together and maybe take it for a ride and see if we can tell any difference in the vibration. I was starting to get just a little bit of vibration. I could feel it at highway speed and handlebars. So it might help it. We'll just have to see. Well, we've done the throttle body sync on the Versys 1000 here, and been out for a ride. I've been on it a couple of hours now, I guess, and I'm surprised to be able to report that the vibes are gone out of the handlebars. It's just as smooth as silk, and really I was surprised. No worse than what they were out of sync when I first checked it. I really didn't have a lot of hopes that syncing them was going to make that much difference, but it really did. It's amazing how smooth it is now. So I guess that mission was a success. It was a total bitch, but it was a success. And I'm thinking the next time I have to do that on this bike, wow, look at that, that I may be able to do that without the breather housing on it, and I may be able to get to those ports to adjust the vacuum on those throttle bodies easier without that breather housing being on it. I think that would work. So maybe that'll make it a little easier. I was pretty disgusted by the time I finished doing it the way the manual said. Man, it was difficult and very time consuming. So I'll try it the other way next time and see how that works. It may be a little better deal, but I'm happy to report that it did work, and all is well here in the Ozarks.